Hello, I am Bookface, and today we're talking about deities from Celtic myth. But there are some issues involved in that. Contact with the Romans and eventually the Christianization of Ireland led to there being very few genuine written accounts of their myth. And many of the myths that we do still have been subject to large amounts of change. Because of this, there's a lot of guessing in studying these myths, and in some situations we know there is an importance to these deities, but we don't actually know what it is. So we're just like, yeah, it looks important. Don't know what it means though. So there's just generally a lot of confusion. And with that out of the way, let's jump right in. Woo! First up we have Epona, who is very closely related to a very similar Welsh goddess known as Rhiannon. She was the Celtic goddess of fertility and horses, but also closely dealt with the use of and trading of horses specifically, as well as healing and fertility of domestic animals. Additionally, she was so popular among the Celts, she was one of the few Celtic deities that was adopted into the Roman pantheon at some point. The Romans kind of took a lot of deities. She's typically depicted riding a horse side saddle, often holding a cornucopia and grain, and she's sometimes also associated with dogs and birds. Additionally, despite all this rather pleasant imagery, she was also sometimes seen as a psychopomp, leading souls to the afterlife. Also in the Mabinogion, Rhiannon, who's generally thought to be roughly the same deity, marries the Prince of Dyfed Pool? I don't know, pronunciation is difficult. Help. In this, she's interpreted not quite as a goddess, but more of a general kind of magic-y figure from the Celtic otherworld. Next up we have Cerunnus, a god associated with fertility, nature, travel, and wildlife. He typically resembles a man with deer antlers, and is often depicted with a boar and a bull. He also is sometimes associated with snakes, being depicted alongside snakes with ram horns. That's interesting. And sometimes he actually has snakes for legs.
I have snake
for legs. How exactly would you walk like that? Like, how does that function? He was also believed to be capable of instantly transforming into any animal. I don't know if he did that, but his legs were still snakes. You've just got a regular old bear, but it has snakes for legs. Unfortunately, Cerunnus is one of the deities where very little is known about them due to a lack of writing. However, the general figure of the horned god appears in many different places around the world, and because of that, he's generally believed to be a fairly important deity. Whoever he is, all we know is that they loved him dearly. Lastly, we have Morigan, who is a goddess of war, fertility, and vegetation. Not to be mistaken with Morgan Le Fay from Arthurian myth. Sure, it is relatively similar, but I didn't do that bit of the research. She was also sometimes thought to be a sort of triple goddess, which is a reoccurring theme in a lot of European myth, having the name Matcha being associated with fertility, Badab associated with war, and Nemain also associated with war. A little unbalanced there, with the three sometimes being referred to as the Morigna. At the holiday of Semain, she, along with other deities, are celebrated for their ties to fertility in order to help the land. I'm sorry, what are they doing with the land? I'm just mildly concerned how that kind of fertility associates with the land. What are you doing to the land? She's noted to have appeared to the Irish hero Cuchulainn in the form of Badab, appearing on a chariot with a red cloak and red eyebrows. She could also take on the form of any animal, and could see the outcome of battles while in the form of a raven or a crow. So, any animal, but only those two are the smart ones. And she was also closely associated with horses. Because of that, many have related her to the goddess Epona. Why are so many of these Celtic deities just having an identity crisis? Here we have 3 deities from Celtic myth. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!